Welcome to another episode in the limited series entitled What to Do in a Mental or Emotional Crisis and Where to Find Help. Now, in this series, we focus the spotlight on mental health with particular focus on teaching self-help techniques that anyone can use during moments of overwhelm. But we also provide information on resources that are available, particularly free ones, to any person in moments when they feel like they just cannot do it alone. I'm Michelle Russell. I'm an attorney, social activist, and for the purpose of this series, I'll call myself a pseudo mental health advocate. But if you're wondering why the lawyer is talking about mental health, I encourage you to watch episode 1, in which I explained why I'm so passionate about the topic of mental health. Now, in our previous episode, we looked at the fact that difficulties are a part of life and they are in fact an inevitable part of life. Life is cyclical, so you have good seasons and bad seasons, quiet seasons and busy seasons, etc. So that it is important to be able to have healthy coping techniques to be able to deal with the inevitable, difficult moments. We spoke to the experts, and some of them even shared from their own vulnerable moments what methods they use to cope in difficult circumstances. So if you're interested in what happened in episode 1, I encourage you to watch the previous episode so that you would be on the same page as us. Now, for this episode, we're going to look at the various ways we cope. I was able to talk to random members of the public who were kind enough to share with me information on techniques they use to cope when life gets stressful. This is what they had to say. So Timothy, tell me, how do you cope with when life gets difficult? To the point of overwhelming, not just small difficulties, but when you feel like the punch is not stopping.
I'm being honest with you. I sleep. I have a nice nap. I may watch I like medical dramas. I started watching Grey's. I guess I'm saying sleeping and taking mental or personal time for yourself is a good method. If I'm feeling down, I can automatically say to one of my friends, "Can we go to the TV room or can we just go outside and, I don't know, watch the sunset?" And it's just good having people there, because I think one thing that the pandemic has affected is our ability to be social with other people. Because you're alone, human beings are interactionary, and they are also able to pick up on how certain people are feeling. So if one person is feeling down, then it's very likely that if another person isn't there to pick up on it, they may find themselves in a very depressed spot or a very dark place. So having friends, even if not in person, to at least make a call or even a video call or just to say hi to a friend or to talk to a friend is a really, really good coping mechanism that I know.
So how do you cope?
Honestly, I do watch a lot of motivational videos on mornings. I do read a lot of books for mental health and all that stuff. I do get some advice and stuff from peers, should I say, and also from work colleagues and all that stuff. So I think that really helps me with my mental health, definitely. But it's a lot more personal work for me. Waking up on mornings, putting in all that reading, getting stuff to actually get you going. I'd say would be definitely for me.
Have you ever had a period in your life where you felt like the punches kept coming?
Oh yeah.
Yes?
Oh yeah.
And how did you handle those moments?
My mother helps a lot. She's a devout Christian, so she helps a lot of prayer, a lot of guidance. But then it's nice to have friends that you could count on and lean on, and get a listening ear. They might not be able to provide a solution, but having someone listen is also a big help sometimes, especially now with the situations that are going on in the world. And you think there's so much problem, so much stress, so much everything. It just be like how you can function, and you're worried about your family surviving and everything else. So then it's just be like, you know what, just let go and let God.
So how do you get yourself out of those bad moods then? What do you do? Or do you do anything?
I crack a lot of jokes. I like having fun and salsa when I can.
Yes.
Well, I really do two main things. First, I would say to not underestimate the power of removing yourself from a situation. Not necessarily taking yourself out of it forever, but taking a little break. Going outside is really a breath of fresh air. It allows you to calm down a bit, relax a bit, enjoy yourself for a bit without the pressures of everything being on your mind. And that leads me to my second thing. I am big on organization. I find that stopping to get myself together, in a sense, helps with me dealing with those pressures already. Find out what is the most pressing and you go from there.
Well, personally, I speak to family members, mainly my mother. I may call her up, video chat. I tell her the situation, we talk about it, we work it out together. Another way I suggest, but I personally do it when things get hard, I pray about it as well.
I try to distract myself with cooking, something that I like, cooking and crafts and that kind of stuff. But what I do is I shut down.
You shut
down doesn't mean that I don't talk to anybody. Shut down basically means I cut out any outside distractions like social media, going out to partying, alcohol, that kind of stuff, because I realize with alcohol especially, it kind of heightens your, if it is that you're depressed, it heightens your depression. So I tend to cut out certain things that will hinder my positive thoughts. I sit down and I try to assess what it is that's going on, and then from there I will then try to see what it is that works. If it is that I figure it out, sometimes you don't figure it out, and it's not a quick fix. Sometimes it takes a couple months, but trust the process.
I think the first coping mechanism, as people would say, is you take a break.
What do you mean by take a break? You go sleep? What you do?
No, you put down your work stuff. You try to get in an area where you're not seeing the stuff that you work with. In my case, my tools or my cell phone for a little bit. And you find what you like to do. Find something you like to do, like music, or I think music is my go-to. I would listen to a little music, sit down in a quiet place where that's all I could hear. And it would kind of drown out any other stimuli at that point in time, where I could just detach myself from the work. Take a short break, reset, and come back to it. And that way, I think most of the problems don't seem as big anymore when you take a break. I don't think any and everybody, people may not be comfortable with going to persons about their personal issues because fear that they might go and tell somebody else.
But what do you do? Because young men
I keep
nowadays
it to
have
myself,
been taken.
and I overthink. This is the truth. I overthink. I try to be my own counselor, and I think about it from different situations. So I will put myself in the other person's shoes. I would try to look at it from all the angles and be as honest to myself as possible, and be as fair to everybody's situation and try to come up with an answer, because I personally am not comfortable going to somebody and telling them all of my personal business. Not entirely. No.
And what happens if you don't find the answer?
If I don't find the answer, I sweep it under the rug and go forward, and that's just the way it is. I would like to give you a better answer, but that is the honest answer.
Now you'll notice that some members of the public spoke about stuff like withdrawing, logging off of social media, or even turning off their phones. And I can relate to that, because when I'm going through a lot, I tend to go into withdrawal mode. I don't really want to talk to anybody. I'm off social media. I'm not reading the news. But this is because that's how I achieve a certain level of clearing of the mind and the clutter in the mind. And I get back some form of equilibrium. But I asked the experts to weigh in on this tendency to withdrawal and whether or not it is a good method of coping.
I don't really agree with that. That can be dangerous, because one of the things about depression is that it makes you want to be by yourself, and in a dark room, and you're eating and you're sleeping. You need people to check in. You need to get out of that. Now, it depends on where you are at. If you're working and so on, fine. I think what happens, the point at which a challenge becomes a crisis is the point at which you notice that a person becomes dysfunctional in life. They can't go to work, or they can't take care of themselves. They're not eating well, they're not sleeping well, they're withdrawing from their friends, or maybe they're just eating plenty and sleeping plenty. So it can manifest. Once you see a change in behavior, now it is a very good recipe for further depression, and then if it gets worse, suicidal ideation, and then if it gets worse, suicide. If the person is saying, I just want a few days to myself, respect that.
So the experts have made a differentiation between withdrawal that occurs when someone is still functional but they just want a little space to sort things out, versus withdrawal that is part of perhaps deeper depression where the person's personality has changed significantly and the person is not functional. In the latter instances, perhaps when we need to be concerned, and as friends we try to reach out to help them. So since they have weighed in on what might not be the healthiest methods of coping with stress, I asked them to share with us what they believe are some good techniques for dealing with stress.
Actually, there's, when you think about it, there's a lot of serious scientific research on fun and its impact on mental health recovery. I think one of the biggest explanations out there in the scientific community is that fun is a necessary distraction away from the prevailing problems that we go through on a day-to-day basis. And how we define fun doesn't have to be the same way as someone else or the multiple persons in the population. For example, your fun might be playing with your dog, could be going to a cruise and relaxing with friends and swimming with the turtles. So I think for us, we have to recognize that fun is a normal way of life. And it is an access, it's not just an escape route, but to me is an access avenue to develop and to flourish and to recuperate in the midst of crisis.
So professionals who tend to work, all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy.
I agree.
So
and we should always find we have to carve out time and space for fun.
That's why I help persons to recognize the stressors in their lives, or even the things that might threaten to stress them out, so that they can preempt or they can deal with it before it gets to the point of a crisis. I call it just staying off the cliff. Okay, there are some things that you can control and there are other things that you cannot control. There are also some things that you can modify in your environment.
Well, you're going to have to break that down for us. Let's start with what we can control.
All right. What are the things that you can control? And I'm talking real simple things. Okay? You can be happy. As simple as that. Take fun seriously. Yes, life stresses you out, but find something to smile about. I just did a professional development course, and funny enough it was on mental illness, and there's this guy from National Geographic, and he says celebrate what's right. Not that you're going to say, okay, yeah, me and my husband having problems, me and my child having problems, I don't have money, I ain't think. Have no illusions. Understand that what is wrong, but everything ain't wrong. There are some things that are right. So do the things that are lovely, and they're so free. Go to the beach, go walking, pick a little flower if you like flowers, draw.
I'd like to share some of my own suggestions for things I use. And the first one is journaling. Writing a journal, writing a book. It don't even have to be any special book. It could just be a piece of paper. It could be typing it on the computer or on your phone. But writing how you feel. And I find journaling helps me to process my emotions. It helps me to process what I'm feeling at the time and even why I'm feeling it. And to process it without judgment. So I'm not going to say I shouldn't be feeling this way. I'm upset that I'm feeling this way. I should know better. I should do better. It is just saying I feel upset. And I feel upset because of this and because of that. And in fact, one of the best things I learned from one of my wellness coaches is that emotions are neither good or bad. They just are. And we need to stop ascribing meaning to emotions. So we say, oh, anger is bad. Love is good. Happiness is good. Frustration is bad. No, emotions are neither good or bad. They just are. It's what you do with the emotions that can make it good or bad. So that when I'm journaling, I don't ascribe any kind of meaning. It's just, this is how I feel. This is why I feel it. And sometimes in that process, it just helps to let off the pressure. And sometimes helps me to think more clearly and come up with solutions. During my talks with the public, I actually spoke to a UE student, Timothy, who mentioned that he also journals, which is interesting because it's not something you normally find that men do. This is what he had to say about why he uses that method.
Sometimes you need to let out your feelings. So, as I said, talking someone could be you ranting, but one thing I've also grown to realize, having a journaling, writing, using some people use the term diary. But when you write down what you went through, so when you write down what you went through, like in about a week time, but you look back and say, boy, this girl treat me so bad. And then after a month time, you look back in your journal and say, where there? And this real that I over obsess about and I complain about, like, so you need like a method to write to. As Twinen said, she's an athlete, so going on a nice jog, or I'm not saying you're supposed to take up boxing, but
No. And one of the things I realize is like a recurring theme from members of the public as well as the experts is the need to vent, the need to have someone that you trust, that you can share your emotions with, some of your most vulnerable thoughts, concerns, fears, worries. This is actually really, really important because if you keep things inside, after a while, you can get into a point of panic or overwhelmed because there's just so much in there that you're not talking about and perhaps not even truly dealing with. In fact, in Jamaica, we have this saying that is pressure bust pipes. And that essentially means that a pipe will burst when there's too much pressure in it. Could be water pressure or any such pressure, but it will burst. And if you're not letting off some of that pressure, letting off some of the emotions, letting off some of the fears and the worries, that will more than likely lead to periods of emotional breakdown, maybe a mental breakdown, or the more extreme stuff like depression and suicidal ideation. So it's extremely important to be able to talk about what you're feeling. Now, I remember years ago, a psychiatrist explained it to me like this. She said, if you have a glass that is filled with liquid, right to the brim, and you try to pour more liquid in that glass, there is no room to put the liquid, so it overflows. She essentially explained that that's what life is like. If you have too much coming at you at one time and you're not able to let off some of the stress, let off some of the emotions and the worry and the pain, and more keeps coming, you get to a period where it's just overflowing. And that's how you can have a mental breakdown or an emotional breakdown, or you go into panic attack, anxiety attack, etc. And this underscores why it's so important to have someone trustworthy that you think you can talk to, whether it's a friend or family member or a therapist. Another method I suggest is venting out loud in private. It's what I do when I'm upset and frustrated and there's no one to talk to about it. As long as the house is empty, I would just start talking aloud. This person made me vex. This is why I vex. This is how I feel. And I vent aloud. I found myself doing it this week. And I remember thinking how therapeutic it was, that by the time I was finished doing it, I felt a level of calm. I felt less stressed and less upset. So that if you don't want to journal, consider venting aloud in private. Now, the final suggestion I would like to make is a principle I learned in 2018 from my wellness coach called learning to become comfortable with discomfort. So Keisha, you taught me this concept called being comfortable with discomfort. What is that about?
Right. So the yogis discovered that we are always trying to run away from discomfort. And the more we run away from discomfort, chasing the things that we think will make us comfortable, discomfort always ends up coming and sitting in our lap and catching up with us, which makes us run further after the things that we think will make us comfortable. So they said, why not turn and face the discomfort and see what happens? And in doing that, I have found, because what I like to do is bring it back to what I have experienced, because I think my experience will help someone else. So when I sit with my discomfort, one of the things I recognize is, one, I don't necessarily have to fix anything, because we always think we're going to have to fix something. I can sit with it and see, okay, is this discomfort a bodily thing? Maybe I just need rest. Is this discomfort emotional? If it's emotional, okay, is it because of an external source or is it mine? It makes me more aware of that emotion, what it really feels like to be angry. You know, we just keep projecting it out and projecting it out. But what does anger really feel like? And the more I sit with the anger, the more I realize, wait a minute, it's just an energy, just a surge of energy, and it dissipates. And I don't necessarily have to do anything about it. And what it does is it then stops me from creating actions that I could end up regretting. Let's put it that way. And again, the same thing. My thoughts, I can then see what thoughts are associated with that. What am I telling myself? You know, what's the story that's associated with that particular discomfort? And that whole exploration has helped me to then recognize that, wait a minute, most of the time the thing is not out there, you know, it's right in here. And the discomfort can dissipate. I don't need something else to fix it. Just being with that discomfort alone solves and resolves itself in most instances. Sometimes it's harder than others, but yes.
Now, as I said, we mentioned in episode 1 that difficulties are an inevitable part of life. And with difficulties come uncomfortable emotions and uncomfortable circumstances. And if you're anything like me, I'm a fixer, I'm a problem solver. I want to know how to fix it, where the resources, or how to get through this period as quick as possible. And she essentially taught me to be comfortable with discomfort and sit in it, allow it to happen at its own pace, and then let it go. So I hope you found something useful in today's episode, particularly the healthier ways of coping with difficulties, the importance of social support, including socializing or being able to talk to someone, and that when you can't talk to someone, you can consider methods like journaling, venting aloud in private, online resources like books, and of course, learning to become comfortable with discomfort. Thank you for joining me. In the next episode, we're going to start to look at external resources such as meditation, wellness therapy, pet therapy, those kinds of things that you can use as mood enhancement and stress relief techniques. I'd like to remind you that the information in the series is not intended to be a substitute for medical or professional advice. I still encourage you to seek help from a certified professional, especially if you have a psychiatric illness. If you or someone you know is struggling, please consider using any of these hotline numbers as a way to get some help. So join us for the next episode where we look at tangible ways to cope in crisis. And until then, please make your mental wellness a priority. See you next time.